Hello and welcome to Trader Talk. I'm your host, Dan Worth, and today I'm joined by Sporting Index's Colin Campbell. Colin, how are things today?
Yeah, not too bad. Cheers, Dan. Yes, it's a nice bright day today. At least it's not as hot as it was the last couple of weeks, but yeah, very, very pleasant today.
For sure. I mean, that's great to hear. And you join us then just before the weekend, and obviously the big fixture coming up is Man United versus Liverpool. The start of the season for United has probably been no less than abysmal. Winless so far, and the only goal they scored was by a Brighton player. So it's probably not the most positive sort of discussion for any United fans, but let's go for it anyway. What do you sort of make of their chances? Is it a complete write-off, or is there sort of some hope for United fans?
um, it's a, it's a great one. I mean, this is always one of the games we always look forward to in the Premier League, isn't it? I mean, it's actually quite exciting, the idea of it being at 8 o'clock on a Monday night. I remember it was, I'm a bit of a dinosaur, and I remember it was one of the first games that they started playing at 12:30 on a Saturday morning, to avoid any sort of crowd trouble or anything like that. So it's almost a sad reflection, actually, on the way things have gone. The fact that they now feel they can actually play this safely at 8 o'clock on a Monday evening. But I mean, it does. I mean, it's exciting. The Premier League can serve up some pretty dull games, for being brutally honest. But this is one that I think most people do look forward to. And the way they've gone recently, yeah, Man United, it's been pretty brutal.
Yeah.
The last few years for Man U and all their fans, it's not been pretty. And Liverpool have obviously handed out a few batterings in recent times. But let's be honest, you've talked there about Man United's first couple of games. Liverpool's first couple of games haven't exactly been fantastic either. They've obviously got a few injuries. They've had to play the likes of Nat Phillips on Monday night there, who, let's be honest, is a championship player at absolute best. So I think there are a few signs. You can always tell. Jurgen Klopp's, he's a good manager, a good coach, but he's a dreadful character, and the mask always slips when they come under a bit of pressure, and you saw that with his interview with Sky or whoever it was on the TV, and some of the stuff he comes up with when he's under a bit of pressure, he's just doesn't feel like he can handle any pressure at all, really. So I don't think it is completely all doom and gloom for Man U, but yeah, by the same token, we're not going to be overly surprised if they get battered 5-0 again, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I'm trying to stay a little bit positive for United fans, but it is quite difficult. You mentioned Klopp there at length, and I don't disagree with you. Some of his excuses are, yeah, completely pathetic. But let's chat quickly about Ten Hag then. Obviously, come in, he's got his new style of football that he's trying to force, arguably with players that aren't suited for that style, but that's probably for another day. A stat I saw this morning was that the last manager to come to the Premier League from Ajax lasted 3 games. I think that was Frank de Boer at Crystal Palace. This is obviously his third Premier League game, and we're not being sort of overconfident for United. I can't imagine he'll be sacked directly after this, but how long do you think he could possibly get if results don't sort of quickly turn around?
I mean, it's one of those. I mean, you you really can't judge these things. I mean, it's now been shown at Man U. They've tried everything in terms of they've brought in Mourinho. I mean, he actually did seem to do a reasonable job. They've tried Solskjaer, who had the full backing of the fans due to his status as a player. Where do you turn to? If they get rid of Ten Hag, where do they turn to? I mean, there can be no denying it that again, as a short-term measure, Antonio Conte would have been perfect. I know that the likes of Gary Neville and that are espousing that he's not actually a Man United manager. They don't want him coming in and playing that way, etc., etc. But this idea of the Man United way and all this sort of caper is pretty embarrassing at this stage. I think they just want somebody that comes in and wins them a few games. So somebody like Ten Hag, I think, it was an appointment that they clearly made well in advance, which made their sort of transfer dealings in the summer or currently ongoing all the more baffling that they actually had this guy lined up. Everyone knew he was coming. Before the end of last season. So you would have thought they actually would have got all the ducks in a row. As soon as he actually technically joined, they would have sort of pulled the trigger and got everyone that he wanted or the club wanted. But that clearly hasn't been the case. So you do wonder how much of a backing he does have. But I can't see them getting rid of him quickly. I don't really see the point of it because, again, who are you going to bring in, I guess?
Yeah.
Pochettino's still floating about, I suppose, to bring in him. But, I mean, nobody, quite frankly, nobody is going to come into Man United and be able to turn that around in any sort of short term. I think if you bring in somebody like Ten Hag and he's got a style of play, you've got to give him at least the season to see if he can get it. He's got to get it into play. I mean, it's obviously we're talking different levels, and I obviously come at this as a Rangers supporter, but the first few games when Postecoglou took over at Celtic was comical. You thought, this is absolutely brilliant and absolutely clueless. This is going to be dreadful. And actually, he then brought in some wonderfully gifted technical players, from Japan and stuff. And actually, as much as it pains me, they really are a very good football team now. They knock it about beautiful. They've got a really nice style of play. It's incredibly effective. And who's to say that you give Ten Hag a bit of time as well, and he might just get there. But clearly, there's something rotten at the heart of the club in terms of Man U. I think there's just an incredible sense of entitlement amongst all the players, all the fans, all the people in the media. They just seem to, do you know the way it's heading? It's heading the way of Newcastle. We heard for years and years and years in Newcastle, we've got all these fans and we deserve to be, at the top of the league, and we deserve this, we deserve that. They could, they are on the brink of becoming a bit of a parody club, I mean, long may it continue. I mean, it's entertaining, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it makes for good TV, and I think most fans in the Premier League, aside from United, are thoroughly enjoying this sort of theatre at the moment. But firstly, I never thought I'd hear that sort of praise come out of your mouth for Celtic. So
no, it really is disappointing. Yeah, it is disappointing. I suppose it's reasonably easy, I suppose, when Rangers are still doing relatively well as well. So, but it's all good for the coefficient, isn't it? All good for the coefficient.
Yeah, of course it is. All right, so moving on, we kind of spoke about some of United's issues. That there are many to go over. None more so than their issues with goals at the moment. Obviously, you've got Ronaldo causing all sorts of problems, or whether he is the problem, we still don't know. But I was looking at the total goals market then on the spread betting. I think it's around 3.2 to 3.6. So, sort of just north of 3 goals predicted. I mean, personally, I can't see many of them coming from United. But so where do you think the goals are going to come from?
I think it is actually, that is an interesting one. Yeah, you're right, 3-2, 3-4 the goals currently with Sporting Index. It's a game that historically has had a lot of goals in it. It used to always be a tight affair, but certainly since the resumption of play after COVID, I think they opened up 1-0 after that. But since then, there's been plenty of goals. I think it's an intriguing one because it is. It's a game. It's a game itself that I always really enjoy. I enjoy ones where you've got top class strikers against pretty average defenders. It always makes for entertaining football. No matter what anyone wants to try and tell you, there's still got to be a few question marks about some of the Liverpool defenders. They've got these injuries as we spoke about. Having to, as I say, play Nat Phillips. I mean, if he plays again, this week on Monday, then there's always a chance. I think, and Andy Robertson, I think his level has dropped off massively in the last year. Whether it's due to exhaustion, due to the amount of games that Liverpool play, they don't really go in for a huge amount of rotation when it comes to some key players at Liverpool. Van Dijk's a Rolls Royce of a player at the back. So he, whenever he is there, you've always got a chance. And Man United is just a complete car crash. And then the flip side, you've got, somebody like Mohamed Salah who, it's picking between, I suppose, him and Kevin De Bruyne as who's the best player in the Premier League. Salah's obviously got a great record against Man United. Certainly recently, every time he plays him, he seems to score. If not more than once. And if Ronaldo plays, for all his detractors, he still scored a lot of goals last season, and that's fine if it's not the future of the club and you're not wanting to build a team around Ronaldo. You obviously can't at that age, but he still has it. He's still. I'm one of the people. I've always loved him. I think he's fantastic. I think he's a winner. I think when people talk about him and Messi, there's no denying that Messi is by far the better player. But if you were to ask me, who would you want to come and play for Rangers to win you games, win you titles, win you Champions Leagues? I actually would take Ronaldo over Messi because the guy just gets the bloody job done.
Yeah.
So he's still got them. They've got a smattering still of reasonable forwards, but they've got no confidence at all.
No.
Marcus Rashford is you spoke earlier about Ten Hag and sort of the managerial sort of upheaval. I think actually one of the biggest victims of that has actually been Marcus Rashford. He's been allowed to, he's come through into the team, showing a lot of promise, obviously performing well at the international level as well. And he's somebody who would have benefited massively from a really good coach, and bringing along and constantly chopping and changing, things going off the field as well, distractions. He really hasn't trained on at all. And I think it's a bit of a crying shame, really, for Manchester United, because you do wonder, can somebody actually pull it back from that situation? We've obviously seen it with a number of players over, the history of football. It goes all the way back. These people that have unfulfilled potential, it is a bit of a crying shame. But I sadly think he's going to be one that's going to fall into that category. But look, a lot of great strikers on show, some absolutely bang average defenders. So yeah, you would expect goals. So that's why the goal line is as high as it is.
Yeah, I mean that all makes sense, and I'm with you too. I love to see those matchups, and I mean you just love to see high scoring games, really. But
not necessarily on the spreads.
Yeah, not from your point of view. I mean we've mentioned it already, but both sides are witnessing the Premier League this season, and I mean it's just crazy to say that Manchester United are bottom of the Premier League. But aside from that, they're both going to be absolutely desperate to get off the mark and get their first 3 points, which to me seems like it might be a bit of a feisty affair. And the referee's almost definitely going to have quite a job on his hands. What kind of markets are you guys offering, really, then, if I'm looking to get involved in some sort of bookings or cards markets?
Yeah, so in terms of the bookings on the spreads, we've currently got a price of 48.52. So it's 10 points for a yellow card, 25 points for a red, maximum for one player's 35. A yellow and a red. So 48.52, which is obviously high. The Premier League usually averages around the mid 30s. So it's considerably higher than that. But it really is a difficult one, because if you were expecting a tight and sort of tense affair, that's when you usually expect the bookings to, the potential for the bookings to make up is greatly increased in those sorts of games. But with, again, the potential of this being a bit of a blowout, then, that again, you would then expect some of to be a lower sort of bookings make up at that point. But the bottom line is, even with the score lines that we've seen recently, that you still see minimums of 30, when these teams play. I think, incredibly, that the 4-0 game, I think, the last time they played in the league was actually didn't have any cards until I think the last 5 minutes, which there was a sort of wee flurry of activity in the last sort of five minutes or so, and it still managed to get up to 3 cards. So It's always going to make up. But yeah, it's a funny one because we've for the boys that are pricing these things up, it is difficult because we've seen this directive from the Premier League. They're trying to let the game flow. They're trying to let a lot of the sort of niggly little fouls, go. They're not sort of punishing everyone. They're not blowing the whistle. And an incredibly small sample size, but over the first 2 weeks of the Premier League, we have seen the average bookings being a good deal higher than we've seen for the first couple of weeks in previous seasons. Mm-hmm. So it's one of them. Does and the game on Sunday, Chelsea Tottenham is probably a good example. Actually by letting these things go, does it just raise the temperature a bit more? By letting this go, does it actually just wind the players up more and more and more? And actually, you get to the point where they just want to kill one another. The managers are wanting to kill one another at the end. So it is really interesting. It's a really, really difficult one for us to judge, especially, like I said, 2 weeks is certainly no sample size at all for us to really start judging these things. So again, you can't see it making up zero. 30 feels like a minimum floor. So and the potential for it is quite high. Michael Oliver is the referee, so he's very experienced in terms of Premier League matches, although he strangely doesn't have much experience of dealing with these, particularly against Man U, Liverpool. So it really will be interesting to see how he deals with it. I mean, there's some shocking characters on that pitch, and especially the ones where they are getting beat, they throw their toys right out of the pram. People like Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, all these sorts of characters.
Yeah.
They don't like getting beat, and they can react poorly. So again, it'll be fun. I think it'll be very entertaining. A few really bad tackles early on should hopefully set the tone for the whole thing, and we can sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, the longer this conversation goes on, the more and more I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, so far we've got a feisty affair with lots of goals, so I'm definitely
it's destined to be a dull 0-0, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, anyway. Looking back to the goals again, then, so I wanted to revisit the Brentford game for Man United. Obviously, they were 1-0 down inside 10 minutes, I think, or in the 10th minute, and 4-0 down inside 35. One of the markers that was interesting to me was the time of first goal. I think it was around the 30-ish mark when I last looked.
It's around 30, 33, 30, around that mark, yep.
Nice. And is that sort of average then for a Premier League game, or are you expecting that to be a bit earlier?
Yeah, it's earlier. It's lower than we would certainly have for an average Premier League game. So yeah, again, it's this idea. The potential is that Man United come out and they do just try and defend for their lives and try and play for a draw right from the off. My feeling is that they don't simply have the players to be able to try and do that. So and it doesn't seem like it's the way that Ten Hag ever sort of sends his teams out to do. But the issue as well is there's going to be a lot of nerves both sides as well, isn't there? I think both spoke about it earlier. Both teams are under a wee bit of pressure. Silly to say after only two games in the Premier League, but Liverpool will be 4 points behind Man City, or behind Man City already. It's got to be a worry just the way that Man City sort of pour along. Then so they are both actually under a bit of pressure, and that feeds through to the players without a doubt. I mean, would you have any confidence at all playing in front of that David De Gea at the moment? I mean, absolutely not. I mean, you've got no idea what that clown's going to do now. So, yeah, I mean, get it. Yeah, it's got to be down there, isn't it, in terms of the time of the first match goal?
True. Yeah. No, thanks very much for explaining that. I think that market is pretty exciting anyway. And I mean, another market that was quite interesting to me is player goal minutes. So, I mean, we've already spoken about the nice attacks versus the poor defenses and all that kind of stuff. But on a more individual level, obviously you've got the likes of Salah and Ronaldo, Diaz, like that could, as you said, go on and score 1, 2, maybe even 3 or 4 if you're the likes of Mo Salah. But do you know what his goal minutes are Or can you explain the market for us a little bit?
So Mohamed Salah's goal minutes for this game's currently 37.40. So it's basically an aggregation of the goal times of when goals that Mo Salah scored. So if he was to score in the 40th minute and score in the 60th minute, then the market would make up 100. And likewise, if he cheekily bags a double in injury time, both in the 90, then it's going to be 180. That's the thing in terms of injury time, it doesn't count, so any goal scores before half time in terms of 45th minute, it will always be 45. Yeah. And any time in injury time at full time, it's going to be 90. So that's the maximum for that. Mohamed Salah, again, it's funny to talk about because he, considering how many goals he has scored and considering what he has achieved with Liverpool, I still think he is underrated. I think it's a daft thing to say, again, considering what he has achieved. But I mean, the guy is just incredible. We spoke earlier about how many games Liverpool players have to play. There was an inevitable drop off for him in terms of having to go and play in the African Cup of Nations. Mm-hmm. The heartbreak there. Then he had the World Cup qualifiers, more heartbreak for him there. And so, I think for the first time we did see a slight drop off in his performance towards the end of last season. But that's the first time I can certainly remember since he joined the club. And he's one of these guys as well who he actually does perform on the biggest of stages. When it is the big games, he always is. He's always front and centre, and so that's why I think his record in these games is so good, because he sort of thrives on these big games. So I suppose one of the not concerns, but the sort of fears if you're a Liverpool supporter is, did he actually benefit from the sort of frosty relationship he had with Sadio Mane? They clearly didn't get on, but did that actually make for a really nice combination? You go all the way back to Teddy Sheringham and Andy Cole at Man United, who, from all the sort of things you read, actually seem to couldn't even stand to be in the same room as one another. But were really potent on the pitch, and you do wonder whether actually could potentially Salah lose a wee bit because he's not got Mane there to sort of, they're almost in competition against one another, even on the same team. So there might be a wee bit of a drop off there, but yeah, I think he's, as I said earlier, I think him and Kevin De Bruyne are in a different plane to the rest of the Premier League when it comes to the class that they show.
Yeah, I find it very tough to disagree with you there, even though Liverpool are my first team, but it's just undeniable how good he is, and he just oozes class. And I mean, I don't think there's a team in the world that wouldn't want him in their side.
No, so that's always it's a great point, Dan. Actually, would they be able to walk into any team in the world? And actually, you're right, that Mo Salah absolutely could. Yeah, you're completely right there.
Yeah. For sure. Thanks for explaining the goal minutes, Mark. Anyway, it sounds like 90 minutes of pure excitement. So I'll definitely be checking that out. The last sort of market question I wanted to ask you are you guys offering any sort of specials or any offers that we could get involved in?
Yeah, so certainly on the Sporting Index side, on the spreads for select TV matches, we do a thing called or for Sporting Index fixed odds. Sorry, we offer the bad beat special, where it's based on the match winner, but if you back a team to win the match and they lose, but they actually win in terms of expected goals, then actually you get your money back as a free bet up to a maximum stake of how much, Dan?
50 quid.
There you go.
Yeah, no, that's quite a good one. The expected goals sort of metric is getting brandished around all over the place at the moment, so it's quite good to see that, and kind of seems to me like it makes the offer a little fairer because so many times your team is just hammering the other goal and you go and lose 1-0.
You're right. I mean, we see it on Match of the Day, we see it on the Sky, post-match analysis, or even in play analysis at half time. And it obviously, it's obviously lends itself to the spread betting
Yeah.
part of the business as well, in terms of, like we spoke about earlier, 3.2, 3.4 goals. Sometimes can feel like an alien concept to some people. And hopefully things like expected goals sort of is able to explain that to people, and the concept behind it actually, gets out there and gets a bit more recognition. So yeah, it's a good one, and I hope people come out and take advantage of that sort of thing when we offer it.
For sure. I'm sure they will. So yeah, my final question then is to put you on the spot and ask you what your score prediction is for the game.
0-0.
Yeah, after all of that chat, we'll go for 0-0.
Yeah, we'll stick with that. We can only hope, can't we, Dan?
You can only hope, yeah. I'm going for 2-0, which I think on the fixed odds side with you guys is about 9-1.
Yeah, nice.
Don't think it can. I mean, it can't be as bad as last season, surely. Um, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, we
I
will.
hope for Man United's sake that it's not as bad as last season, but it's going to be
No,
entertaining
true.
either way.
Let's hope so. Yeah, for sure. For
Sure.
sure.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Colin, for joining us. Yeah, we've kind of previewed that nicely, and I think everyone's going to be pretty excited for Monday now.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, hope everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. So for the guys at home, I just want to remind you that with spread betting, losses can always exceed deposits. So keep that in mind. And if you are gambling with us, please do so responsibly. But as Colin mentioned, most of all, just enjoy the game, enjoy the weekend, and the wonderful sport that we've got to look forward to. So thanks again, Colin. And thanks, guys at home. We'll see you soon.
Nice one. Cheerio.